Alrighty, hi everyone, it's Ion Blaze here. So per request, I am going to make a video, an update. I'm going to update this, and it's going to be best song twists for Kunark era. What are the best songs twists as a bard you can play? Kunark era, a lot of stuff opens up. So let's get into it. So let's talk about raids first. What are the best song twists for raids? So one of the things that'll help out actually is, let me swap you over to this screen. And I actually have a raiding guide. There we go. There's some other stuff too. But there's some guides that show you what resists you want to buff for particular fights, and typically it's a couple different things. So let me just show into it. All right, so I'm gonna load my standard go-to raid set, spell set. So the spell set for raiding, what you like to do ideally. This is if I'm in a group that's mixed with both casters and melees. I have Silos here. I'll run Cantata of Replenishment. I'm just gonna say Cantata. Cantata of Replenishment, which is HP and mana. I'll run Nivs for extra mana or extra HP regen. I'll show you. Right now I'm at 8 hit points per tick, and if I stack Cantata with Nivs in a 2.4 mod instrument, it goes up to 55 at level 60. So that's, let me whip out the calculator. That would be 55 minus 8, 47 points for hit point regen. And then next, what I'll do in 5 and 6, Guardian Rhythm stacks with pretty much every single it stacks with every single resist buff. So I use Guardian Rhythms, and you want to play with a percussion instrument for that. And then what I'll do is I'll swap. So there's 3 possible songs you can put here on 6. So depending on your situation, you'll either want to run Elemental Rhythms for fire and cold resist. You'll want to run Purifying Rhythms for disease and poison resist. Or you'll want to run Psalm of Mystic Shielding for extra magic resist. The only problem with Psalm of Mystic Shielding is it doesn't stack with Nivs. It does stack with Guardians, but it doesn't stack with Nivs. So these are the 3 options you have. And the other problem with Mystic Shielding is it doesn't have as much hit point regeneration as Nivs because it can't be modified by an instrument. It will only be modified by the epic, whereas Nivs can be modified by the stringed instrument. So you get more hit point regen with Nivs. But yeah, these are your 3 options. They all really don't stack with each other, so you kind of have to pick one based upon the situation. So like for Trachanon, for instance, I would run Purifying Rhythms. Or if I was fighting Vox, I would run Elemental Rhythms, for instance. And the next, it's kind of up to your own preference for what you want for the 2 last ones. I run a bunch of different stuff. So Charm is always a good thing to have up. Dispel is good to have up. You can also run, your Mez. You can run your Invulnerability, Kazumi's Note of Preservation. Sometimes I like to use this, Angstlich Asinus, which is a single target dot and slow. I run AoE slow. It really depends on the situation, to be honest. But one thing definitely, depending on what raid mob you're going against, if you're going up a raid mob that has Gravity Flux like Khazak Thul or Inruk, I always throw in Levitate into my song twist, just because of their dispels. And then if I'm doing Finnegal where I'm underwater or something, I run Teru's Aquatic Ire for Enduring Breath. So that's what I run for those particular setups. Now let's talk about if I were the puller on raids. I'm just going to show my setups and what they mean. So if I was pulling on a raid, what I would have up... Okay, so I got Sealos up. If I was pulling on a raid, I'd want to stack my magic resist as high as I can, so I'd want Psalm of Mystic Shielding, and if you want, you could do Guardian Rhythms as well to get magic resist higher. I like also having Kazumi's up just in case for invulnerability for 12 seconds. But it takes 3 minutes for it to be ready to use. Full is Lull. 5 is Charm, always useful. 6 is Dispel, or you could swap out this single target Dispel with Sign of the High Sun. It has a shorter range. This has a longer range, but it only strips 1 buff. This has a shorter range, but it strips 2 buffs, and it also teleports the mob back to the spawn point. So you have to be kind of careful. You can pull with it, but as long as the mob is at its spawn point. I would also run Snare, just in case you want to pull a little slower than with the Dispel, and the Mez, just in case things go bad. And then next I'm going to road, what would I twist if I was in a melee, a raid group that was full on melee. So I use Raid Mix for casters and melees, and then I use Raid Melee if it's really just a pure melee group, or almost all melee group. So it's the same thing pretty much, almost all the songs are the same, except these first 4. And the last 4 are really up to you. 5 and 6, those are my resists, and then 7 and 8 is whatever you want for the particular fight, like say Levitate or Enduring Breath or whatever you need. But the first 4, they're special, so that's... What I run is McVaxius, Rousing Rondo. It's not as much of a haste as, say, Villia's versus a Celerity, which is 45%, or versus a Victory, which is 30%. But McVaxius Rousing Rondo has a damage shield on it that can be modified with a brass instrument. So what I've noticed at level 60 using this 2.4 mod brass, I'm able to get a damage shield that is 19 points. And I got that from 57. So from 57 on to level 60, the damage shield using a brass instrument that's 2.4 with McVaxius will be 19 points. And the beautiful thing about it is it stacks with any of the psalms that you have. So right below, these are my major resist songs. These are my targeted resist songs. So Purity for poison, Vitality for disease, Warmth for... I think this is cold resist. Yeah, and this is fire resist. Hold on a second. Yeah, let's look. So if I stack these 2 up, you can watch. He's gonna get a DS of 30 points. Wow, 30 points. Yeah, 30 points. So you can stack any one of these and they bring a damage shield. Any one of these 4, they bring a damage shield that's typically about 10 points of damage. Right now it's 11 at level 60. And it can go higher once you have the epic, I imagine, because they're singing skill. But they also have targeted resist buffs. They'll boost up your resist for whatever you might need for a particular fight. If I don't care about resists, I often run Psalm of Cooling because it has Ultra Vision tagged on to it as well. Alright, so let's go into what my group damage shield is pretty much, again, if I'm in a mostly melee group and I'm not really pulling, I don't need Silos up, I'll run basically those same 4 in the first slot of the damage shield, HP regen, Nivs for extra HP regen, McVaxius. Then I'll usually want to have Charm up, Lol, Largo's Assonant. You know, if I'm not pulling, I should honestly put Inkstlich's Assonance on instead. Yeah, I'm gonna save that over group damage shield. Okay. So yeah, the first 4, damage shield, HP mana, HP, haste, and damage shield. This is my charm. It works up to level 51, but it costs mana, so you'll eventually run out. And it can't go beyond that, so sometimes it's just useless. Sometimes I'll swap this out for a Dispel. This Inkstlich's Assonance, a level 60 spell that lasts for 1 minute. It's a dot that was doing about 60 damage, and it's slow for about 30%. And then you can stack it on with your Snare and Slow at 51. And then a Mez. Song of Twilight at 53 can Mez up to level 55. So it's good for almost everything in Kunark except for Deep Chardock, in my experience. You need an Enchanter for Deep Chardock. And then the next one, talk about what I do for my regular group. All I do is I swap out Snare, and I have Lull, because I'm going to be pulling. This is my pulling one. I use Grape Regular for if I'm pulling, and just if the group is somewhat mixed, if I don't have many melees, which I typically don't make groups with a lot of melees, to be honest. And what I do instead often, when I'm in Deep Chardock, I can't charm anything because it's almost all above 51 at over and under camp. So I often run Dispel or a faster pull. I use Dispel to pull faster, and I'll use Snare to pull slower, more controlled. And I was pulling so many mobs actually in that camp in over and under that I didn't want to use my single target Snare anymore at that point. Single target Snare, this one, Assonant Binding at 51, it has a better slow and a better snare, but it's only a single target. This one, Assonant Strain, is an AoE snare and slow. It's not as good, but if you have a bunch of mobs and you need a little bit of crowd control help, this will be better. This is a better choice. So that's what I was running down when I was pulling a whole lot of mobs. Typically I pull singles. If you're pulling singles, just stick with a single target snare. But if you're going to be pulling a boatload, I'd run AoE. Now talking about soloing, what would I use in that case? So this is for single target killing. If I was just going to kill a single target for soloing, or also charm kiting. Yeah, this is charm kiting. I could charm kite with this setup. Alright, so what I would run is obviously you want to have your Silos up, and then you can go you have 4 single target dot, full 5 actually, if you count Brusco's Bombastic Bellow. Not Brusco's, there's a different one, there's another Brusco's. But you got Foofles, Chian's Chant of Flame, Chian's Chant of Frost, and you also have Inkstlich's Assonance, and those are all 4. There's one other Brusco's. Those are the 5 single target direct damage spells, or dots, I guess. Brusco's is a direct damage. These other 3 and Assonance are dots. Sorry about that, the confusion. Foofles, Tuyens, both Tuyens, and Inkstlich are dots. And Brusco's, the earlier one, is a direct damage. So I'll run those 3. Those are my single target dots. I'll run a charm if I want a charm kite. I'll run a dispel to break the charm. Ideally, I'd want to swap this out for haste, self haste, being Jonathan's inspiration. but I don't have the Goblin Gazuki ring for charm breaks, so guarantee charm break, so I have to run that. Or you could run an invisibility, to be honest. You could probably put Silo's Song of Travel up. Yeah, for charm breaks, you can break a charm with invisibility, or you can dispel the charm off. So I was typically using this to dispel it off. Now, what's great about the Goblin Gazuki ring, I'll show it real quick. I farmed a couple on P99. They're a real pain to get, but Goblin Gazuki ring. So it's a ring, you have to have it equipped. Let me see on Goblin Gazuki ring. You have to have it equipped on live, I wonder. It can equip. Okay, so you don't have to even have it equipped on live. Okay, that's nice. On P99 you do. So what it does, it is a targeted invisibility spell. So you have to target yourself and then right click it. But once you do, it's an invisibility that pops on you. And what that'll do is it'll break any invisibility you have on you instantly, by the way. It's an instant invisibility break, unlike casting any song that I have. And you're good to go. You're absolutely good to go. It'll break the charm. Hide, you can use Hide as a ghetto charm break, but it fails a lot since bards don't have a really high skill cap on it. Yeah, what's the skill cap on Hide? 60, the skill cap on Hide is 50. Not very high. So you can break charms with Dispel. Without the Gazuki ring, you can break it with Dispel. You can break it with Invisibility, with either Silo's Song of Travel or Showery Sonorous Clouding. Kind of all you've got, to be honest. Or you could break it with Hide. So the Gazuki ring, why I like it, is because you can save one of your... Each one of these slots is precious. You want to save every single slot you possibly can. Every single slot needs to be used by... needs to have something in it that you can use. If I didn't have this, I'd swap it out for something else. So if you can have a clicky that can do an effect, one that can replace one of your songs, it's incredibly useful. And then snare, of course. What I'll do if I'm like doing a single target is I'll snare the mob and throw the 3 dots on. That'll help out. And then a fear. Why I have fear is you can fear kite casters. So what you'll do, you'll throw a snare on the caster, you'll fear it, and you'll want to ideally haste yourself. And you can basically beat down a caster mob with it not being able to cast on you. The only problem is you need room for the kite. You need room to move around. So that's the truth. So yeah, if you want to do a single target, you do the snare, Poofles, and then both 2 yens. If you're going to do charm kiting, you throw out the charm, attack the other mob, and you could probably dot it too while you're waiting. And then if you're going to do a caster, fear kiting, you do AoE fear, snare, and then you could dot it if you wanted to, but you could also haste yourself and just melee it down to death. And then for my travel, what I use for if I'm just traveling around, I'm going from one place to another. Use Silos. I'll have both Silos up. I'll have the you know what I should do? Honestly, I should run that one. I should run Cantana. I should run Nivs. No. Put Kazumi's here. And let's put Charm. Because Charm is always useful. It's so hard sometimes deciding what you want to have in each slot. Travel, I set this up to be able to run and get away. So, Silo's Song of Travel, Cantana of Replenishment, invulnerability, just in case. I have lull up, just to get by C invis mobs. Charm, AoE fear if you need to run. Snare, and your mez. And that's typically my song setup as level 60. That's what I... Ooh. Sure use that. That's typically what I run. Yeah, that's typically what I run for most particular situations. And I really am starting to like this AoE snare. I use it more often now than I use the single target snare, to be honest. Because I don't have to target any mobs. Like right now, you can see I have a whole bunch of mobs and they're all snared and slowed, which helps out tremendously instead of having to mez everything individually. Poof. Yeah, so now I'm doing my damage shield twist. Or no, I can't because I have to swap out. Typically when I'm doing my damage shield, typically when I need to roll a snare, I swap it out with Sama Cooling in my song twist. So I'll run snare, HP mana, HP, and haste. That's what I run for that particular scenario. Anything else I can think of? No, that's essentially it. I think that's really all for the song twist, to be honest. I mean, there's a couple specialty spells here and there. I mean, I can mention them, but nothing really to note. Some other songs bards have that could be useful, theoretically. Chords of Dissonance, Chords of Dissonance, Chords of Cessation, Denon's Bereavement, and Denon's Disruptive Discord. These are all AoE dots, but they will not do damage if a mob is moving. What else do you have at disposal? Cassandra's Insipid Ditty is actually quite useful, as well as Denon's Dissension. They're both mana taps. They're both songs that tap mana. So Denon's Dissension is a AoE mana tap, and Cassandra's Insipid Ditty is a single target mana tap. I actually use this on Finnegal Autotrops to great effect. You can mez Finnegal, and then mana tap all his mana away, so then he's basically a melee at that point, and he's really easy to take down if he's melee, and he's slowed. He's incredibly simple. The other one that I wanted to mention, Inkslich's Assonance. This is a single target dot that lasts for a minute. That's a slow, and it does 60 damage if you have Brass equipped, a 2.4 mod. Song of the High Sun, that one I've already mentioned. It's a 2-slot dispel that kicks the mob back to its spawn point. Let's see, Kellen's Lugubrious Lament, that's lull. Cassandra's Elegy, I'll use this if I'm in a full caster group. I'll swap it out for one of the songs. It boosts intelligence and wisdom. Cinda's Charismatic Carillion, this one is a faction boost, so sometimes that can be useful, but I've noticed that on P99 you can use it on everything, but on live you can't seem to use it on merchants, so I'll use Solin's Charismatic Concord. Oh, and that leads me to on P99, Cantata of Replenishment stacks with Cassandra's Chorus of Clarity. That's actually the best mana regen twist in P99. It's playing these two. You play Cantata of Replenishment and then 3 pulses of Cassandra's Chorus of Clarity. But these don't stack on live. Absolutely they don't. That's a very big difference between P99 and live. So bards actually cannot generate as much mana on live as P99 in that regard. The next one is, these are just the, this has a cooldown, I believe, but it's a direct damage spell that costs, it doesn't cost mana? Nope, it doesn't. Nope, it doesn't. Let me see how long the cooldown is on it. Five minutes. It's 5 minutes to do a 222 damage. Not really worth it. Each one of these slots is so valuable that using it on that is kind of dumb. The next, let's see what the next area is. I never use Nif's Harmonic. I think it's a spell resist or a spell rune. This says Solidarity of Vision is a useful one. That's a bind sight if you wanted to lull through walls. Lenia's Disenchanting Melody is it strips the first buff off of everybody in a group. It can be actually useful if you have a dot. The group gets dotted. Use Angstlich Assonance. Bam. I might almost pull with Angstlich at this point. Yeah, you know, I think that's off. That might be a better... I'm not sure if I was going to pull, would I want to use Dispel or I want to swap that out for Snare. I don't... If I didn't have the Dispel, I would use Angstlich's Assonance to pull, because it's got a good enough range, and it brings in a snare too. I mean, it slows the mob immediately on impact, and it doesn't slow them from coming in. Song of Midnight, I think that's a fear, but I'm not sure how high that works too. Song of the Dawn, that's a that drops aggro. And that's kind of it. I'm kind of mad about Nilipus March of the Wii. They got rid of its ability to shrink. On P99, it was a partial shrink that would be permanent even when it wore off. But on live, it's useless. It's completely useless. They took the shrink away. And that's kind of it for the Song Bard book, to be honest. That's almost everything you could do. Hopefully that helps out. Yeah, this is up to Kunark. The only difference, I think, in Velius that I will mention, let's go over to this. In Velius, bards get a new song that's pretty good. Well, in Velius, you get the earlier level Quintana Soothing. So that replaces Hymn of Restoration pretty fast. And then you also get at level 55, Occlusion of Sound, which is still an unresistible decrease in resist, so that's often I use that on raids tremendously. That's one of my must-have equipped songs on raids in Velius. Very useful. Very, very useful. You'll help out a lot. You'll get... The Enchanter will throw a Cash on a mob. You throw Occlusion out with the Enchanter, and then usually by that time, the Shaman or Magician could land at a Mallow, and then there that mob is pretty much ready to be blasted. You really just need to boost. The only problem with Occlusion is it's temporary. It's only for like 15 seconds, so I use it mainly just to help out initially with the Shaman to land a slow, or if anybody needs to land a big damage dealer, but that's kind of it. I don't keep it up the whole time. So hopefully that helps out, guys. I will see you in the next video.